Welcome to our next video in our series about buying back your military time. Hi, I'm Micah with Plan Your Federal Retirement. One of the things we want to talk about in this video, the previous video we were talking about military time, what are benefits that you get if you buy back your military time? But then it leads to the next question, what's the cost to buy back your military time? And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Now I'm going to walk through an example of how this works as a federal employee from some of the questions that we received. But let's keep in mind, everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. So if this example doesn't directly apply to you and you have questions on your individual benefits, fantastic. Jump on our website, planyourfederalretirement.com. You can meet one-on-one with one of our benefits advisors and we can walk you through how this works in your particular situation. But let's dive into this. So in our example, one of the things that we want to talk about is what are the costs to buy back your military time? Again, we talked about the benefits. In the next video, we're going to talk about how actually do you buy it back. But before we figure out buying it back, we got to know how much of a check we're going to write. Great news is that it's pretty inexpensive, and you're going to see how that works out real fast. One of the things that they're going to do is OPM charges a percentage fee to buy back the time plus interest. Now, there's a waiver period of time from the time you first started as a civilian federal employee for up to 3 years, well, 2 years until the third year starts, so 2 years and 11 months. You have that window of time to buy back your military service, and you pay 0 interest, which is fantastic. Now, if you miss that window, you got to pay interest from day one. So it's really important if you're a newer federal employee, make sure you look into buying back your military time. So one of the questions that we received is we had Bob, and Bob wrote in and said he had 15 years of service. I'm going to round 15 years of service with the Air Force. So thank you so much for service, Bob. Really appreciate that. 15 years of service. And he wanted to know what would be the cost and what would be the benefits if he bought that time back, because he's not getting a pension for it. So does he add it to his years of service? I said, Bob, it's a fantastic question. Now, the first thing I would do in this case is I would go and ask Bob to grab his Social Security statement. Why do I want the Social Security statement? Well, what I need to do is I need to figure out how much, Bob, were you paid during your 15 years that you were in the Air Force? Because what OPM is going to do is they're going to charge you, remember we talked about, to buy it back, plus they're going to charge a little bit of interest. So what is the rate to buy it back? They're going to charge you 3%. 3% times your base pay is what you have to pay back, plus interest, if you did not buy it back inside of that first couple years as being a civilian federal employee. That's the formula. Now, most of the time when I'm talking to clients and being like, hey, what were you paid? They really don't know. Or they maybe know a gross number, which is their base pay, plus their BAH, plus maybe deployment fee, combat pay, something of that nature, etc. But it's not actually their base pay. So one of the things I love to do is grab the Social Security statement and I can look and see the annual wages. The old Social Security statement is better than the new one, but I'm going to look and see what their wages were year by year. And I'm going to look for the 15 years Bob was in the Air Force. I see how much was subject to taxes, and that's going to be pretty close to his base pay. It's not going to be spot on, but it's going to give me a really quick math to say, where am I in the ballpark? Well, let's say during this period in time for that 10-year or 15-year period in time, let's say his base pay averages and he was paid $200,000, just to make my math super easy over that period in time. Well, $200,000 times 3% is $6,000. So Bob's going to owe at least $6,000 in order to buy this time back, plus any interest that's going to be accrued. Now, the interest changes every single year on how much it's going to be, but you can see from the base cost of it, it's really not that expensive. We'll talk about in a future video the direct benefits. The last video, we talked about how to increase your length of service, which is fantastic. We also are going to be talking about the dollar benefits that you're going to receive when you walk through this as well. But this is at least a $6,000 question for Bob. He's going to at least have to pay that, potentially a little more. Couple of pro tips. When you buy back your military time, keep the documentation that you have. Whether it's you paid it back via a check and send it to OPM, I want a copy of that cleared check that went through your bank account. If you did it via payroll deduction, which is totally fine, I want every single LES, leave and earnings statement you have that shows that payroll deduction. In addition to that, OPM should be sending you a letter that says, Bob, thank you so much for buying back that 15 years of service for this dollar amount. And I want to keep that in your record. And when you retire, I want to send a copy of that off to OPM. Why? What if they lose it? What if they don't have it? I know they should have it, but I want to make your retirement as easy as I possibly can. So these are really important things to keep. I can tell you it's been more than one time that we've contacted OPM, whether it's for a certified summer federal service or a retirement was adjudicated, so finalized, and I'm looking at the benefits and it did not include their military time, and OPM just didn't have any record of that. And we had to go provide record of that to OPM. So I want as much of that documentation as you possibly can. So this is gonna help answer that question, how much does it cost to buy back the military time? Now the next question is, how do you actually do it? Great news. Stay tuned for our next video where we're going to help walk through how you actually buy back the military time. Until then, happy planning.